Hey fellow bakers, welcome back to A Pinch of Patience, where I share baking tutorials, tips, and tricks. And today I'm going to be sharing with you my apple pie recipe. Let's get rolling. Alright, so first off, I'm actually going to take you guys to the supermarket with me so you can see exactly how I shop for my apples, just because I feel like getting the right type of apple is such an important component when it comes to making apple pie. So we're going to do that first, and then we'll get into making our pie. Now, I do just want to let you guys know this video is going to be focusing on the apple pie filling itself and then also decorating the top. So I'm not going to go into too much detail as far as how to make the pie crust. I'll go through it just super quickly in this video, but it's going to be in speed mode. So if you have not learned how to make homemade pie crust before and you are looking to learn how to do that, you can click right up here at the corner. There's that little eye icon, and I will post a link in the card section there so you can click and find my tutorial on how I make pie crust. It will show why I use the ingredients that I do in a super simple version that is really great for beginning pie makers. Hey guys, I'm here at my local supermarket, and I just wanted to show you guys how to look for the perfect apples for apple pie. So I'm here with all my kiddos. You guys say hi?
Hi!
Thank goodness for the free apples and bananas at our supermarket. And we got the car cart. Coolest cart ever. So for my apple pies, I do like to get a total of 9 apples, unless the apples are just so super huge, then I might get 8. But typically I shoot for around 9. So when you shop for apples, you're gonna want to be looking for a description at the store. So as you can see, these are Fuji apples. And on the description, it will tell you what the apple is used for. So these Fuji apples, it says that it's excellent for snacking, cooking, and salads. So you want to find apples that say that they're great for baking or for pies. See, this one is a gala apple. It's great for eating fresh or adding to a salad. So let's keep looking here. A Red Delicious is excellent for eating fresh and salad. Look here, we have a Granny Smith, excellent for snacking, salads, or pies. So we're definitely going to be getting some Granny Smith. So these Honey Crisp apples right here actually do not have a description because they're on the sale rack. But Honey Crisp is one of my favorite ones to use in a pie. They're just so super sweet. So I'm going to be picking up 3 of these for sure. As you're looking for apples, you want to look for ones that don't have defects in them like this, that are going to be difficult to cut out. You want to find ones that are not bruised. Most of them, if you have a good supermarket, should be nice and firm and not mushy and should be fresh. As you can see, this one's got a little spot in it. And those don't hurt the apples, but it's just easier to cut if you can find ones that don't have any of these malformities. You can see this one's got a bruise on it. So that one's you're gonna have to cut that part out if you buy the apple. So we're just gonna be looking for really nice, firm apples. Yep, that one's got a bruise. Do you like apples, girls? Love them? In my mix of 9 apples, I always throw in some Granny Smiths because they have that nice tart flavor, and I always throw in some Honey Crisp apples because those are super, super sweet. So then I just make up the rest of the 9 with just a random, whatever the store has on hand, but I do just make sure that they are designated for baking. If you get an apple that doesn't say baking, it doesn't say that it's great for cooking, then what's gonna happen is your apple's gonna shrink in your pie, and you're gonna have this huge gap in between your apples and your crust, and there's just a softer apple. So you want those harder apples, and those are going to bake up really well for you. So in the end, I ended up getting 3 Granny Smith and 3 Honey Crisp, which I always do. My other 3, I am trying out Johnny Golds this time. We'll see how they do for me. All right, for the pie crust, you'll want 3 cups of butter flavored shortening, and then 6 cups of flour and 3 teaspoons of salt. And you're just going to crumble this all together with your hands. And then
then you will add a 1.25 cups of cold water and just mush it all together, and that makes your pie crust. This is a double recipe, so this is enough for about 3 pies. I do know that this is super quick here, but I just didn't want to take extra time in the video because it was long enough as it was. I do have an additional video teaching exactly how to make pie crust in detail, so make sure you check that out. I'll put a link in the description box below.
Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut up the apples. I have my bowl of apples here. You'll want to go ahead and wash them first. Some of you may be wondering if it's okay to go ahead and use one of those spinny apple cutter things. I don't know what they're called. We just always called it an apple peeler, core, or slicer. I don't know if that's what they're called, but those apple machines, you know what I'm talking about. You stick the apple on the end of these spikes, and then you turn this handle and it peels it and slices it and pushes the core out all at once. That is totally fine to use. I have used that for my pies before. I don't like quite how thin that it gets the slices, but it still works. But the only downside that I have to it personally is just I really don't feel like it saves me that much time, because it doesn't peel the apple perfectly. There's some little scraps of peel that you always have to take a knife and go and fix. And then also the inside of the core, I feel like when it cores the apple, there's still some of the seed shell cavities, those hard chewy parts of the center of the apple still inside, you know, the part that you're supposed to use that I have to cut out as well. I don't feel like it saves me that much time. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and cut these apples now. All right, so you have your sharp paring knife, and you're just going to peel all the way around. The apple. And then here you have your peeled apple. You do just want to look for any bruises or anything. I know we tried to prevent that in the supermarket earlier, but there's a tiny little bit of a bruise here. I'm just going to cut out, but no big deal. It's going to be baked, so as long as it's not like a terrible bruise, it should be fine. So I cut mine in half, should look like this, and then in quarters, like this, and then you'll just want to cut out the inner part of the apple that has the seed cavities and all the yucky parts, and do that on all 4 sections. So that way you have your quartered apple that is completely all apple. It doesn't have any hard parts right here in the center at all. And then when you slice the apples, this is about how thick I like to slice mine. So I'll show you here. So I don't know, what is that? Maybe half an inch or so? I'm not good at measuring. So with this particular apple, I got 4 slices out of that quarter. So each quarter should be 4 or 5 slices. I like to snack on these. They're so good. Maybe that's why I have to use 9 apples in my pie when most recipes calls for like 7, because I eat a whole bunch of them when I'm cutting them up. So what I found as I was cutting the apples, the Granny Smiths are going to be more of your tart flavor, and then your Honey Crisps are going to have that really, really sweet. My Johnny Golds that I bought, it wasn't what I was expecting. I've heard Jonathan's are supposed to be really, really good for pie, but they were very, very soft, and they're more of a mild flavor, which is going to be okay because we have the other 2 flavors, but I'm worried about them kind of shrinking in my pie. So we'll see how they hold up after I bake it.
All right, so for the filling, we're going to start with 1 stick of butter, and we're going to turn this on to a medium-low heat and get that all melted down. All right, so once it's all melted, we're gonna add 3 tablespoons of flour and also a cup of water. And then we're just gonna whisk these together to make a thick paste. And here's what the consistency should look like. It's very, very thick. So the next we're gonna add half a cup of white sugar, half a cup of brown sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla, a heaping tablespoon of cinnamon, and then 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. The nutmeg is really gonna give it that bite and spice that I personally love in apple pie. So you're just gonna mix this all up here. We're gonna crank up the heat here a little bit to a medium high, and we need to bring this to a boil. So here it is about after 5 minutes, and it's a gentle boil here. And we need to boil and stir it for 1 minute. It needs to boil for a full minute. This is gonna help caramelize those sugars. So after it's been boiling a minute, we're gonna turn the heat back down to a very low simmer. And we're gonna simmer this for 1 full minute. And this is just really gonna help cool it down slowly. And once it's been simmering, it's gonna be this really nice caramel. I love this recipe. It is so aromatic. The cinnamon and nutmeg just really make it extra special. Look at this caramel. All right, and we can go ahead and add this to our sliced apples. And then we'll just mix these in, making sure that they're coating all the apples and everything is covered evenly here. All right, so we're gonna get started rolling out our pie. So you'll want to first flour your surface, as always. And I have my pie dough here. Form in a disc and roll it out. All right, and then I just take my pie dough and put it on the edge of my rolling pin, roll it up. Place my pan, and then roll it right back out into the pan. And you want to lift the edges of your pie dough and make sure that they fall down into the edges of the pie. You never want to there's a gap here, you never want to just take and force this down because you'll create a tear. So you need to lift the edges. Knife and cut around. Again, I'm going pretty fast through these steps, but just watch my pie crust tutorial and I will explain what I'm doing right now in depth and detail. All right, and I'm going to prick the inside with a fork. The steam can get out. All right, so now we're gonna just take our apples that are already coated with the filling and pour them into our crust. We're gonna set this aside and roll out the top. And I think I'm going to show you guys how to do a lattice top today. So take another hunk of dough and we're just going to roll it out. This time it does not have to be a circle since we're going to cut it into strips. Now if you find, I don't know if you see this, so This is a little bit of dough that had stuck to my rolling pin and then came back off. And as you can see, as I'm rolling, it's creating all these indents in the dough. So obviously we don't want that. So get rid of those little scraggly pieces. And if you do have dough sticking to your rolling pin, you'll want to check that every now and then and make sure that it's not doing that. Okay. All right, so lattice tops can use strips that are any width. You can use really skinny strips, really wide strips for different looks. Today I'm gonna go with more of the medium, not super skinny, but you know, pretty standard when it comes to pies. So I'm gonna go for about this. It's maybe 3/4 of an inch wide. If you don't have a pizza cutter like what I am using, you can use a knife. That's what I used when I first started. And I'm really just eyeballing these. If you're not very good at doing straight lines, no shame, that's totally fine. Just get out your ruler or something straight that you can use as a straight edge that you can go up against. But they don't have to be perfect. As you can see, some of mine are skinnier than others, and that's okay. That's why every pie is unique. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that you can do lattice top. Either you can place all your vertical strips down and then do a whole bunch of lifting as you're placing the horizontal strips, or you can build from the center, which is a new skill that I learned. So I'm going to show you how to do that because it is way easier. It may seem confusing at first, but it's way easier once you understand it. All right, so first you're going to make a plus sign. Our horizontal strip is going over the vertical strip. And so we're going to add 2 strips on each side of that vertical strip, one on the left side. As you can see, your horizontal strip is going over and then under. So you always just want to think every other as you're doing this basket weave here. And then we're going to go ahead and add the strip on the right side. So those are our vertical strips, and now we're going to add horizontal strips. So same thing. Now, since we have more of these going on now, our last horizontal strip went under, over, and under. So this next row, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to go over, under. So we're going to lift that middle one and then over. So that means we're going to lift the center there. And everything's going to be identical on both sides. So we just did this side, and so when we do the top, same exact thing. We're going to just go ahead and lift that middle strip and then lay a new vertical strip right there. All right, so now we're going to add some more vertical ones, one on the left side and one on the right side. So again, we're just going to take this center strip right here and lift and place a new vertical strip on the left side, and same thing for the right side. All right, so now we've got 5 rows that are going vertical and 3 that are going horizontal. So we got to keep everything even here, so we're going to add some more horizontal ones. Now, as you can see, we've got more rows going on here, so we're going to be lifting the 2nd and 4th strip here. So we'll lift those, place our horizontal piece, put those back down, and do the same thing on the top. Just make sure to keep everything all symmetrical here. So lift the 2nd and 4th strips and place your horizontal strip. All right, so we've got 5 rows of horizontal strips and 5 vertical. So we're gonna go out once again, a row on the left and a row on the right. So we're gonna do the same thing we just did. Take the 2nd and 4th strips and lift and place your new vertical row there. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. second and fourth strips and pull lace that row. All right, so as you can see now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows going vertical, and then the 5 horizontal. So we're going to add one at the top and one at the bottom. So we're going to lift the 2nd, 4th, and 6th rows this time, and place your strip. And then same thing on the top, the 2nd, 4th, and 6th rows. And we've still got space to add some rows on the left and right. So again, you're going to lift the 2nd, 4th, and 6th strip, and then add a vertical row there. And same thing on the other side, 2nd, 4th, and 6th. Now there is some more room at the top and the bottom. So this time we're going to be lifting the 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th. Now I want you to take a look at the strip. It's got a little crack in it, so I'm going to place it strategically where it's going to fall underneath another piece of dough. That way it's going to be nice and hidden. And then we're just going to do the same thing on the top. Lift the 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th strip. And I had to cut me another strip here. Use every last piece of that pie dough. And there we have it. All right, so as you can see now we have all our strips on the pie, but the tail ends are sticking out. So we're going to take our knife and just cut them right here, the same distance that our bottom crust has been cut so that they match. So I'm just going to take my knife here and trim all these edges. All right, so now we're going to take all of this, so you have your lattice top is on the top, and then this right here is your bottom crust. And so we're going to take both of them and fold them underneath. Now this is a little bit harder with a lattice top than it is just with a regular 2-crust pie. But basically our goal is we don't want any of the edges of this lattice top to be just freestanding, because what's going to happen when they bake is they're going to pop up and just not have that finished edge of a look. So I'm taking everything together, all the crust, and I'm folding it underneath and laying it on the lip of the edge of the pie pan here. So here's the part I've already done. Here's the new part, so I'm just going to take everything here and fold it all under and set it right here on this little lip. Okay, so you could do a couple things here. You could leave this as is and bake it, or you could crimp the edges. Now, I used to crimp all my edges of all my pies just because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. However, I found that when I did crimp the edges of a lattice top pie, it kind of messed up my lattice, just because when I went to pinch and crimp around, it would make these edge pieces turn different directions as I was pinching and crimping, and it would just look a little messed up around the edges. So actually what I've been doing is just leaving it like this, and I feel like it looks a little sharper All right, so you can bake this pie as is. The lattice top is just such a classic look. It's very popular. I'm going to show you one more quick thing you can add to the top just to give it that extra wow factor, especially if you're giving away this pie as a gift. My sister, Georgia Beck, is actually the one who came up with this design. She was over at my house last year when I was making pies for some Christmas customers, and I was trying to think of different designs I could do just to make them extra unique, and she was playing around with my pie dough and came up with this, and I think it's super cute, especially if you're giving away these pies as gifts. All right, so we've got all these scraps here. Kind of mush them all together here real quickly. Roll this out. Alright, so this is just my extra pie dough scraps that I've rolled out again, and you're going to take your pizza cutter and we're going to make a few thicker strips, maybe about 2 inches. Alright, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a bow, a gift wrap bow to put on top of our pie out of pie crust. So it's going to be super cute. First you'll take one of your strips, move this out of the way here, and we're going to just fold it like this. So you have your long strip, and you're going to bring both ends into wherever the center is. And this has got a little bit of a crack on it, but that's okay. I'm all about using leftover dough. Okay. All right. So this is going to be the bow. We're going to flip this over. Okay. Now we're going to take a strip of dough, maybe about this big, and wrap it around the middle. Look at that. So we're gonna put this on. Okay, so we're gonna pinch your ribbon a little bit before we wrap this. I love this because it gives kind of like a three-dimensional look to it. You can kind of manipulate this ribbon, kind of pinch it to make it look like it's actually a ribbon on your pie. Make it look more like a bow. You can fluff up these sides like that. Okay, so then we're going to take our other strips and cut them. You can do, these are going to be the tails of the bow here on the pie. So you can do, there's a couple different options. You can either do the tails to have an edge like this, or you can do them to have that diagonal edge. Either one is just fine. So you want to cut both of your other strips to have that. You can do regular diagonal edge. If you want a sharper cut, you could take a more drastic angle to it. You'll want to just make sure that both strips match, whichever angle you choose to do, just to make it all super uniform. So there we go. We'll go with that. Okay, and then you'll come back to your pie, and we're gonna place these underneath the bow. Place these on the pie. If they come up quite a bit, I'm just gonna eyeball it and tear this off where it will overlap our bow section. These, again, you can also manipulate. I'm just gonna kind of go like this. So we want it to look nice and real, so I'm just gonna smush this down a little bit just to give it a little bit of a 3D dimensional look. Your bow on top of all of that. Since I've been showing you, I've been moving it up and down a lot, so it's getting kind of mangled. That's okay. All right, just manipulate it however you'd like here. Isn't that cute? My sister came up with that. I just think it's adorable. All right, now this is a lot of dough, so just so you know, if you're making this for somebody who doesn't really care for pie dough, probably should choose a different design. But, ta-da! Then you're just gonna sprinkle it with sugar. Nice finishing touch there. All right, so this is apple pie. We have used raw apples, and so this is gonna take quite a bit longer to bake than the pie that I showed you in my first pie tutorial. And so we're gonna have to cook this for a really, really long time. We wanna make sure that we cover it with foil so that our crust stays nice and pretty. All right, so we're gonna roll out a piece of foil, make sure that it's long enough to hang over both ends. And we're gonna tuck this around the edges of the pie. And then as you can see, my other two ends are a little short. So I'm going to roll out a second piece and put it perpendicular and tuck that around the edges of the pie as well. So we're going to bake it like this for the majority of the time so that the crust doesn't burn. And you'll want to bake this in an oven that is a piping hot 425 degrees for the first 15 minutes. After that first 15 minutes in the hot oven, we're going to reduce the heat to 350. And we'll want to keep that pie in there for about 50 more minutes before we check on it again. All right, so after that 50 minutes, we're going to take a look at it, and we'll want to go ahead and take the foil completely off. Be very careful that you don't burn yourself. Sorry for the shaky camera here. I was trying to keep my almost 2-year-old from getting too close to the oven. All right, so this is pretty normal. The dough is not all the way cooked. You can see some raw spots. So we're gonna keep this in for about 15 to 20 more minutes to let that dough finish browning real fast. And here it is, the finished product. Hope you guys enjoyed the apple pie tutorial, and I hope it gave you some ideas of how you can share the Christmas spirit with maybe some friends or neighbors, and maybe give a pie to somebody. Homemade pies are just such a great way to show love because you put time and effort into it, and I've just always known that people just really appreciate a homemade gift like that. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a great big thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do that so that you don't miss any more baking tutorials that will come out every single Friday. And we'll see you guys later.